Community-centered spaces are catalysts for change. I've learned this through being the co-founder of a nonprofit cafe. Our guests pay what they can, pay what they'd normally pay it forward so others might eat, or they make their contribution with time and talent and volunteer. Our guests are from all walks of life, and we serve our community through beautiful, healthy meals, and our space is accessible to all people. A cafe isn't typically where you expect to find people from very different walks of life, finding common ground beyond food, but we see this. One day, a volunteer came to me and asked if I had time to talk to a man and woman in our dining room. She thought it was important. The woman opened the conversation by saying, "I have a story to tell you, and it's not very flattering of myself." I was intrigued. She said that she and her husband didn't want for anything, and she went on to tell me that they had read about the cafe and decided to try us for lunch. But as they walked there, she became worried, and she asked her husband, "Is this a place for us? Will we be welcome?" And he said, "I guess we'll find out." Now, as they walked, they caught up with two men ahead of them, and I immediately knew who one of those men was as she described them. Joe's a large man, and he walks slowly due to some medical issues. He's also homeless, he lives in his truck, and on that day, he was bringing a friend to lunch, a newcomer. So at this point, this woman and her husband were right behind Joe and his friend as they arrived at the cafe. And this newcomer turned to Joe and said, "Are you sure we should be here? Will we be welcome?" And Joe responded, "We're just having lunch like everyone else." Now, tears welled up in this woman's eyes as she told me this story. She said that she had realized she had the same fear as Joe's friend. But then it had dawned on her that perhaps what he was actually afraid of was her. Afraid that she might judge him, afraid that she might make assumptions about who he was and what his circumstances were. You see, spending time in community-centered spaces helps us to discover what we have in common with people we may think are very different than us. It also opens people up and helps them make a difference by encouraging them to innovate. In mid-January, two women farmers, Kelly and Nicole, contacted us. They had seen a video about the Wall of Kindness movement in Iran. And this is where passersby are invited to leave goods they no longer want for those who may need them. These two women wanted to bring this concept to our city, and they wondered if we might host it. Together, we came up with the Fort Collins Giving Tree. Now, it was so exciting just after a couple weeks to literally roll the giving tree out of the cafe's garage. And it's built with love out of old pallets and tree branches. And it's a place where all people can give, receive, or both. And we've learned so much from the giving tree. We have learned that suddenly in the winter months, wet wipes become incredibly popular. But why? Because the water in our public parks is shut off then. We see many in-need guests who have service and companion dogs. And it had never really occurred to us how they manage to carry everything they own on their backs along with dog food. So we began offering small bags of dog food and treats. But perhaps what was most surprising was how popular journals are in the giving tree. We can't keep them stocked. I believe that there are many people who have a lot to say, but few people are listening. And if someone is empowered to act on an idea and empowered to ask for help, and someone listens and responds, in my experience, good things happen. Kelly and Nicole were empowered, and they created a local version of the Giving Tree. Community-centered spaces help us to get to know people, and they help make dreams come true. Our cafe operates with only 3 employees. So we have many, many volunteers. These are just a few of them. One young woman volunteers with her mentor through a school district program. Now, this program is for 18 to 21-year-olds that have special learning needs, and it helps them to transition from high school to adult living. Our volunteer, Maddie, started in our dining room, and she could run our front of house within 2 months. She would help us train new volunteers, just amazing. And then she started working in our kitchen. And when volunteers are chopping vegetables, there is plenty of time to chat, and we get to know them even better. And we learned that Maddie loves to paint. And one of our staff members asked if she would bring in some of her paintings. So she dropped by with a stack of paintings, but he wasn't there, so she left them. And the next day, after we looked at her work, we decided to hang them at the cafe. And when she arrived for her next volunteer shift and saw her paintings on the walls, she broke into the biggest, most beautiful smile. She had a dream, and we learned this later, to sell her art. And by hanging her work on our walls, that dream came true. She has now sold 11 paintings. Maddie's mentor shared with us later that dreams don't typically come true for these kids, and a community-centered space helped make this dream come true. Now, many people like Maddie are not always connected with spaces that are inclusive of all people. And that holds true for homeless people, people living in poverty, and so many others in our communities everywhere. My husband and I didn't set out to open a restaurant, let alone a nonprofit cafe. Neither of us have a restaurant background. My husband had been a waiter for 1 year, and I have never worked in a restaurant in my life. But we believe strongly that all people deserve access to good, nutritious, healthy food and an opportunity to give back. Our guests at the cafe include our mayor, young families living in their cars, business people, retirees, homeless members of our community, people from all walks of life. We wanted to create a space where all people can be together, where all people are treated with dignity in a dignified way, and all people are valued. We love our community, and our community listened and responded, and we opened this cafe with no debt. Was this easy? No. There were times when we struggled because some thought we might bring undesirable elements to the neighborhood. But we looked at this opposition as opportunity and a chance to build community around our idea. And now, many of the people who had concerns are sharing lunch with us. Love prevailed. What if we invite all members of our community to join in building that community And what if that were a standard organizing principle like we have done at the cafe? I have personally seen my community come together, and I have had the pleasure of seeing dreams come true. So I challenge you, get involved, especially in spaces that are community-centered. You'll be surprised how much you learn and grow. And in my experience, you get much more than you give. If you have an idea to make your community stronger, act on it. Don't be afraid to explore ideas that are new to you. Just ask for help. You may be the next innovator in your community. If someone reaches out to you with a far-fetched idea, like a nonprofit cafe, take the time to listen and give it a chance. And if you own or manage a space, rethink the potential positive social impact that you and that space could have. One small gesture can make a dream come true for someone living in their car, for a person with an idea, or a young artist with a dream. If we all do just a little to make our communities better and more inclusive, imagine what we can do together. Thank you. Thank you.